It's 24th December 2006 and 19. Practically 7 to 8 days from the new year. We shooted first video about our outlook of 2020, and personally speaking, I got many calls as usual, WhatsApp messages, Skype messages and all. And one of the persons asked me one thing that that your outlook about 2020 is very scary. The positive element in the outlook is very small while the negative element in the outlook is very big. I will say I agree with this. There is no doubt about that. What would I do if things around me is completely negative? Today I got two news. Number one, Cognizant. I don't think that I need to give introduction what Cognizant is. Cognizant firing 350 people, and this is over and above the roughly 12 to 15,000 people they already fired. And remember, this news came today. When we were shooting the video yesterday, we were not aware about this news. And one of the videos we clearly said that IT and ITES companies will shed the jobs. Another news, we got two news from banking sector. Commerce Bank is more or less on sale. And Bank of America see that the stress he see that the leveraged loans will see some stress. Today, the CEO of Bank of America came in the public domain on the Bloomberg TV and he was sharing his thought. Although at 5-7% I'm in disagreement with him, but more or less I'm in agreement with him. What he was saying is a fact. And honestly speaking, this is the first time after 2008, practically roughly 11 years after this financial mess, I have seen that Bank of America came in the public domain and told about some positivity. Because every time I saw Bank of America came in the public domain and they were talking it about superficial things, not reality. Like we talk about reality. We don't talk for people's feedback. We don't talk because we want 1 million views. We don't care. Because my channel is covering the class, not the mass. In this second part of our journey, which is Outlook 2020, we're going to be covering about few sectors more. Like one is the virtual banking, one is the financial market, and the last one is the startup story. And then we're going to shooting the part C. In between we shoot the part C, which is conclusion. So in all it would be approximately 40 odd minutes video. When it comes to virtual banking, we feel that virtual banking is a reality. Treasury Consulting already shooted number of videos on virtual banking. You can see that videos. We feel that Southeast Asia as a reason will move towards virtual banking. Because politics or no politics, one thing which is sure about Southeast Asia is that at least two countries in the Southeast Asia, which is Singapore and Dubai, they are leading ahead as far as the virtual banking space is concerned. And Dubai, although they have not taken an aggressive lead in the virtual banking, but honestly speaking, in blockchain and IoT and virtual reality, they are not lesser than Singapore as well. It would be difficult to say that Singapore is having a heads up, a very big heads up from Dubai. Although Singapore do have a heads up compared to Dubai, but this heads up, the difference of that heads up is not very big actually. So we feel that Southeast Asia will continue to lead the show. But having said that, if you are reading one business newspaper in a day, there are number of digital banks, those who coming in the public domain, and they are launching the demo services. Like one of the digital bank of Hong Kong, they have already launched the demo service, while another digital bank of UK, they started Paytm Second. Paytm Second means free service. And I have a deep interpretation issue. Because we need to remember one thing very clearly, that profitability is always an issue as far as the virtual banking is concerned. That's a fact. And in fact, Monetary Authority of Singapore recent statement about Resort and Grab about the virtual banking license is the profitability. No offense to both of the companies, we know that both are in losses since inception, and especially Grab, to be honest. And now the funding would dry. We talk this later. Profitability, product diversification, and innovation is always an issue in virtual banking, because my interpretation of the virtual banking is completely different. The reason why I'm saying this is this, that recently name of the virtual bank came in the public domain, and it is said that, without quoting the name, that they hold approximately, their valuation is roughly $6 billion. $6 billion. When I went to the website of that virtual bank, I got to know that that virtual bank is merely selling credit cards, nothing. And apparently speaking, their credit card is also not on their platform, rather it is on the platform of some another bank. So it is just like Treasury Consulting started selling credit card, and this credit card is being offered by basically the technology of that credit card is offered by Visa International. And what is happening? My valuation is growing. We have already seen number of cases worldwide. WeWork is one of the example. We have seen Uber, one of the example. We have seen Peloton is one of the example. I would say there are humongous examples which we have who lost it after initial public offer. In fact, today on Bloomberg, when I was listening, there was some part of the Bloomberg, the news which came that the funding talks between SoftBank and WeWork is now stalled, and the information is coming from Reuters. And if this happens, then the lender of last resort in this whole game would be Goldman Sachs. And though I am a pro Goldman, but I know that Goldman will definitely milk this situation, and the fees would be pretty high, to be honest. But that's a different thing. So when it comes to virtual banking, profitability, product diversification, and innovation is always an issue. And in fact, in Singapore, we have told number of times, raised the concern even before Monetary Authority of Singapore, that virtual banking is not all about payments. It is not all about giving a banking to somebody who cannot have bank. Virtual bank is wrong. It is bank as a virtual. When we going to be filing for bank license, we are very clear. It is not a virtual bank. It is bank as a virtual. Apparently speaking, regulator understanding of new product definitely an issue. We feel that. In fact, in Singapore, one of the conferences that happened in Singapore, it was crystal clear that regulator is not very conducive in most of the cases, apart from one or two exceptions like Monetary Authority of Singapore and Hong Kong Monetary Authority. Apart from that, in majority of the cases, regulator even do not know what is happening about. And it is very difficult to convince the regulator that these are the things that are mandatorily required in the industry. This is what the scene right now is we have in the industry, and that's an unfortunate fact. In fact, in this presentation, it was showcased that lot of workshops and everything had happened with the regulator. Unfortunately, I cannot give you the name that was presented in that presentation, but that regulator is still not understood how the cloud compounding works. That's the reality, and that's the honest reality. Well, we feel that it would be difficult for big banks or incumbent banks to digest the virtual banking, because one problem, like if I take example of DBS, Development Bank of Singapore, one thing which is sure about Development Bank of Singapore is that DBS is having roughly 12,000 odd workforce, 1 to 12,000. And I really don't think DBS need that. DBS need 12,000 workforce. So there are two questions before the big banks. Number one, if they move toward virtual bank, and they have to, because they need to give competition to the upcoming virtual bank / neobanks. Although, having said that, there is a big difference between virtual bank and neobanking. The issue is that how they would be consuming this big manpower. It's very difficult. Because if DBS have 12,000 people, I don't think virtual bank needs 12,000 people. Can't you imagine that DBS, a virtual bank, needs 12,000 people? I really doubt that virtual bank need 12,000 people, to be honest. Maybe if you think virtual bank needs, I don't know, but for me, virtual bank definitely not needs 12,000 people, to be honest. That's a big thing. And very important thing, which in fact we also raised and MAS also raised during the meetings, is that how you would educate the people of Singapore. It's very difficult to make them educate. Education is a very difficult thing, because when it comes to education, you have a kid who is 12 years old, you have a kid, you have somebody, young guy, 30 years, people like me, 35, people 40, 50, 60, and maybe eventually 85. Because Singapore average age is roughly 89, which is second to Switzerland if I'm not mistaken, but I take an indemnification, I might be mistaken here, but Switzerland is roughly 91 and Singapore is 89. So if the average age of the Singapore is 89, practically speaking, that you will have a deposit you will have somebody who will come and do the deposit for having age 80. How would you convince him? You don't know. It's very difficult. So education is very difficult. And I really don't think that in an era of OTT, over the top, when we have Amazon Prime, we have Netflix, we have Disney, we have Apple TV, and so much stuff, it's very difficult to see how this shape up. So that is something which is very difficult. Last but not the least, we feel that regulatory sandboxes are actually not serving the purpose. We feel that regulatory sandboxes, of course we have few exceptions, but the hard reality of the matter is that even today, when we talk about regulator sandboxes, we know that nothing concrete came out of it. That is also a hard reality, and we know about it. There is no doubt about that. But the biggest problem in the regulatory sandboxes is that the number of applications with filed in the regulatory sandboxes are very small. And out of these small, they test roughly half of that, and they come, by the time they launch the product, it is nothing but a controlled fire. By the time they launch a product, they got to know that somebody who not a part of sandbox have a better product than compared to the sandbox. So sandboxes worldwide are facing a lot of problem, and the hard reality is that majority of the good central banks, without quoting the name, you understand, in fact, their sandboxes not yet came up with a product which can revolutionize the market. Just like iPhone, iPad, iMac Air Pro, and the list is very long. So that is something. So eventually we feel that virtual banking will definitely continue in 2020, but virtual banking will not start in 2020. Actual virtual banking will come on the ground on 2021. So for virtual banking, 2021 would be more interesting year than 2020. But having said that, Hong Kong, Europe, Singapore, South Korea will lead the show. Singapore definitely not have a monopoly on the virtual banking, at least this time. So would be the Hong Kong. Everyone will fight for a common cake, and let's see who will win, who don't win. We don't know. Profitability, product differentiation, and innovation is definitely an issue. Because virtual banking is not all about credit cards, it's not all about debit cards, it's not all about mortgages, it's not all about lending, it's much more. We need to think holistically, we need to think big. Last but not the least, regulatory understanding of the new product definitely remain an issue, and it is that how the big banks will continue with the big workforce, I don't know, but always an issue. Education, I definitely think is an issue, and OTT platform, over the top platform, will definitely need to come forward and take that. Eventually, virtual banking is, I would say, is a big scope for 2020. And I think all the young guys, those who are watching this video, or the people, those who are, I would say, working in some company, they should take this matter seriously. Because virtual banking is now a reality. As simple as that. The second part is the financial markets. We feel that financial markets would be not conducive, at least 2020. Central bank leadership will definitely be a concern, like Christine Lagarde. I am not a fan of Christine Lagarde, definitely. She made International Monetary Fund a mess, and I feel that European Central Bank would continue to be mess under Christine Lagarde. Negative interest rate policy would definitely be an issue, and especially at a time when the 5 central banks of the globe, which is Bank of Japan, Swiss National Bank, European Bank, NOK and multiple, they are under negative interest rate policy. It is like Swedish National Bank came in the public domain and said that having a negative interest rate policy was the biggest mistake. But it's not a mistake. It's not easy to rectify these mistakes. So negative interest rate policy would continue. There are different data for different dimensions, but if we console that data, we got to know that one thing which we got to know is that around 16 plus trillion dollar out of the total investable surplus of roughly 39 plus trillion dollars is under NIRP, which is negative interest rate parity, which is literally sad, to be honest, and we feel that this may continue and this may increase, because one damn thing which would happen in 2020 as far as the financial market is concerned is that more will move towards triple C and triple B. So one of my very good friend, he said that Rahul 2020 would be triple B year. I said no, it is triple C year. I don't know you understood or not, I try and make you understand. Triple B today, majority of the market is double A plus, A minus. Some are triple B plus. I envisage that soon it would be triple B minus, like Indian credit rating triple B minus, and many countries will go one level down. They would be triple C minus. And this is really a mess. Even Warren Buffett has said that the world in the 2020 would be more about triple C, and I agree. I feel that 2020 would definitely be triple C. Having said that, how credit default markets, or simplistically speaking credit derivative markets, would shape up, very difficult to envisage, because I don't know. Because credit default swap market never saw a year who is fully dominated by triple C or triple B. But this time we got to face that year. And that is something which is sure. So how the credit default market or the credit structures will shape up, that is more important. And we need to see this seriously. And I'm sure that the good business channels like Bloomberg and all, they would lead the show in that regards. Well, apparently speaking, the political pressure will continue on Federal Reserve. American presidency election, I don't know Donald Trump will come or not, but there is still a probability left in the market that Donald Trump would come. The political pressure on the Federal Reserve would continue. Even if Donald Trump comes or not, Federal Reserve would be forced to cut the rate. Although they have said clearly that they are not going to be increasing the rates in 2020, rather they love to hold it. But we really need to see if the Trump don't come, or maybe he comes, how long they would be able to hold it or not cut it. That's very important. At least one carry currency out of 4 will go, which is Indian rupee, Philippines peso, Australian dollar and Sing dollar. Carry currencies are of two types. One is the funding carry and one is the liability carry. So, one is the investment carry and one is the funding carry. Funding carry is also known as liability carry. These 4 investment carry, which is Indian rupee, Philippines peso, Australian dollars and Singapore dollars, shortly known as Sing dollars, at least one will go. And I feel that it would be Australian dollar. Eventually, I see that by 2021, Singapore dollar will also go, but I am not sure as yet, to be honest. But at least one carry currency will go, and we need to see how the traders, the banks, the financial institution, the trading desk, how they will shape up this. I see that the funding and the liability currency, which is Japanese yen, will be more worst. Or if I speak in trading language, it would be more beneficial for for traders to have that. In fact, I'm not sure or not, but JP Morgan Chase already said that Japanese yen would be the currency for 2020. And in our last video, we also already said that Japanese yen would definitely be a currency of 2020. But the Japanese government will fall in 2020. The debt to GDP impact would make them mess up. Simply mess up. We feel that mutual funds, DFIs, financial institutions will continue to face the tough regulatory environment, and the standardization would be more. So heterogeneous products. So all these financial institutions are launching multiple products. I really don't think they would be in a situation to launch the multiple product. I think that they will move towards standardization, because in the next year multiple regulations are coming as far as the money market mutual funds in US and Europe are concerned. And do not forget, fundamental review of the trading book, PRA, MA, SFTR, revised guidelines are on the way. So we feel that the mutual fund market is more towards standardization rather than towards heterogeneous. If this would happen, I'm sorry, this should not be. Apart from that, we see that portfolio management would be very, very standardized. Robos and algos will take up the job, but honestly speaking, systematic crisis would be an issue that regulator needs to keep in their mind. So today we have portfolio managers, portfolio directors, portfolio analysts, and all these fancy terms. Eventually what would happen? It would be a robo. But systematic crisis will definitely be an issue. I see that 4 banks will collapse in 2020. Apart from many small, 4 big banks will collapse. One in US, I will not name that bank because this is my prediction, but I feel that 4 big banks will collapse. One in US, one in Europe, and one in US, yes, one in Europe and 2 in India. One in US, one in Europe, and 2 in India. And I see that and remember that one in Europe which I said, it's not because of Brexit. So it is excluding Brexit. So we have not considered Brexit. We are not naming that bank, but we feel that one well-known bank in US, a very well-known bank in Europe, and 2 banks in India will collapse. And the 2 banks which we set in India that will collapse, they are not public sector banks. They are private sector banks. We are not naming them. Having said that, we feel that investment banking would die in 2019. Especially, it is already died, like UBS, which used to be a big investment bank. Now I don't think less than 1/3 of their investment banking is left, to be honest. The broker crossing networks, which are black hole kind of system, they would dissolve. Investment banking would more or less be aligned with the blockchain. That would surely be happen. So the manpower requirement in investment banking would decline. That something happened, and we have already said that investment banking will move towards technology. More and more technological oriented products that would come in investment banking. Rather than need 50 people to get a job done, we might need 5 people, to be honest. Well, it would be a wonderful year for IPO. It won't be a wonderful year for initial public offers, but it would definitely be a very good year for investment banker as far as the merger and acquisitions and consolidations are concerned. If you take my writing, the next year when we meet, investment bankers made a lot of money in merger and acquisitions, amalgamations, spin-out, spin-off, and hell lot of stuff. While they will not make good money in initial public offer, and which they definitely not. I don't know, you know it not, Aramco paid around $90 million to 16 banks in their initial public offer, and collectively they raised around $26.5 billion. $2,600 million will raise, and they paid only $90 million as the fees, and that to 16 banks. Now you do yourself. Simple. Our third, which is a startup, we feel that there would be less startup that would incubate in 2020. The reason would definitely be funding would dry, and it is already dried, to be honest. There's no, everything what is there. We feel that Tencent will come and take up the position of SoftBank. Although the competition is very tough, we have BlackRock, Brookfield, and Blackstone, and to be honest, KKR. Already 4 people are waiting to replace SoftBank, but I feel that Tencent is having an advantage. While valuation will continue to rise, so as the loss, and profitability would be on the reverse side. We see that valuation will continue to rise, losses will continue to rise, and our media would continue, and worldwide media would continue to be silent that there is nothing which is happening in the venture capitalist segment. To be honest with you, we feel that the more important thing about the venture capitalist, which is we see a lot of Chinese funding come to Singapore. We see that real estate investment trust will get a lot of VC funding. Private equity, Blackstone, BlackRock and Brookfield will continue to take up their positions in India. I think one of three is already having 12 billion plus portfolio. 12 billion plus portfolio they have only in India, and they will continue to rise. Singapore Sovereign Wealth Fund SWF, which is GIC, will continue to take their stakes in India, and either it could be real estate based or non-real estate, that we need to see, to be honest. Goldman venture capitalist has also investing a very good money in the Indian startups, but they are not investing in Indian story, they are investing in Indian startups. That's a different thing. So eventually this will continue, to be honest. We feel that the financial markets would be really stressed, so would be the portfolio management and the startups, but somehow they will not break. Break will happen in 2021. Now this is part C. To conclude that the banking sector will collapse, at least 2 million jobs to go. Robo will take up the jobs. Big banks to face the heat, not in terms of revenue, employment, but in terms of profitability. Big boys, AAGM, Amazon, Alibaba, Google and Microsoft will continue to rule the show in cloud compounding. IT and ITS will continue to shed the jobs, not 100, 200 in thousands. We have clearly seen an example of Cognizant today. Once again, after firing thousands of people, they asked around 350 people more to step down. Southeast Asia would be led by Singapore, but this time Singapore would face tough competition from their neighborings, especially Thailand, Philippines and Dubai. But I'm sure Singapore government would be able to make a lot of new things happen. While social spending will continue, and even in that, I don't think Singapore will be an exception anymore in 2020. Wind-ups would continue, liquidation would be high, but the media would continue to focus upon valuation. Like if you're reading Indian newspaper or any newspaper, the media is more focused upon valuation. Like in Singapore, Honest Bee, Go Beer, and there are multiple such platforms that are getting burst one by one. One important thing that would happen in 2020 and that would also getting discussed is that startups will continue to face the leadership crisis, which is happening today also. We have seen WeWork, we have seen Uber, we have seen Petalon, and there are lots of such examples in that regard. So leadership is definitely be something which would going to happen. On the we'll said about part C, we feel that 2020 would be very conducive for those people, those who are technically sound. It would be a wonderful year for those people, those who are functionally sound. It could be anything, medical science, foreign exchange, fixed income, treasury, data science, could be anything. We feel that in 2020, technology and functional understanding will move together, but having said that, 2020 would give equal respect to functional understanding and technology, which was not the scene at least in 18 and 19, to be honest. We feel that venture capitalist funding will dry, SoftBank to be replaced by Tencent, but having said that, there are 4 big competitors also in the line, so we don't know. Financial market would face the heat. Negative interest rate policy is definitely an issue. Central banks have left with very less firepower to get done, and political interferences on central bank would continue to happen, including Federal Reserve. Trump re-election and Brexit would definitely be 2 big issues that we need to see in 2020 because both would have an impact on the financial market. Last but not the least, we will see that social spending will continue, startups would face the leadership crisis and many things would happen. To conclude our outlook, we see that 2020 would be a very interesting year for many people, including us. But the biggest problem for 2020 is that by the time you do something, it would get changed. So the speed of knowledge, I call this KS, I don't know you understood this or not. The speed of knowledge would be very fast, maybe 2 times faster than 2019. every passing year, like the speed of knowledge was faster in 2019, it was not versus 2018. In 2020, it would be faster than 2019 and much faster than 2018. Probably in 2021, the speed of knowledge would be much more faster than 2018 and beyond comparison versus 19. This is how it going to could happen. It would be an year of consolidations, year of wind up, liquidations, job losses, stress, and a lot of stuff. It's not scary, but we always give the reality. Because we are not a paid media who only talks what few corporate people or few politically motivated people ask us to do. With this, we definitely thank you very much. You know my mobile number, which is +91 9899242978. You know our fixed income platform, www.fixedincome.global. Treasury Consulting will continue to participate their role in 2020. We know what we're going to do in 2020. We would be on our toes. We have already launched our derivative desk on Amazon, and trust me, we are one step away from Lazada, which is Amazon of Singapore. We will continue to do a lot of innovative things in 2020 because we know one thing, that if you survive in 2020, it means you survive for long enough. But having said that, in 2020, many of the competitors will wind up automatically without having any interference. So I am open for 2020 with a lot of well wishes, and I wish you all the best. Have a happy new year, but remember that it definitely not be a political year. It would be much more than that. Have a good time and talk soon.